because there's this guy I know who he he put up on LinkedIn a post yesterday saying like, this is how you get it dropped. He dropped an F-bomb in the post, and he got a lot of backlash for it. There were a lot of people that were like, yo, this isn't Facebook, like keep it professional, yada yada.
Yeah.
And he said, well, Gary V and Tony Robbins and one other person, those are my role models, and they swear on this platform and whatever platform that they choose. So like, I believe in authenticity. I should be able to do what, like, if that's me, I should be able to do that. And so I went to Gary V's LinkedIn page, and not a single post that I looked at like 20, not a single
Yeah.
post had him swearing. I go on Tony Robbins' page, I'm like, not a single LinkedIn post had him swearing or anything like that. And honestly, like Tony Robbins doesn't even do anything on his social media anymore. Like it's all other people.
Yeah.
So
Come on, guy.
I was like, dude, get your facts straight. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I didn't go back far enough. But I was like on Instagram and Facebook, 100% Gary V is like swearing in every other post.
No doubt.
But
Who is this guy?
he's a well, he's not. He doesn't call himself a high performance coach anymore. He's a business coach who works with CEOs, or he's
Got it.
trying to work with CEOs. So,
Got it.
and actually, one of the comments on there was like, if you're trying to work with CEOs, you should ask them about swearing on LinkedIn. And I was like,
Dang.
damn. But
Dang, getting called out, put on blast, man.
I know, dude. So it was kind of funny. That's what I was just talking to my girlfriend about.
Damn, I
But
wish I would have had my audio on for that one.
yeah, yeah. So where are you at right now? You at home?
Yeah, just at home, Scottsdale.
Nice. You got a little studio or one bedroom or what is it?
That's actually a 2-bedroom out here.
Oh, two bedroom? Nice,
Dude,
dude.
if you're ever out here, man, you can come crash.
Yeah, for sure. Where in Scottsdale?
Just across the street from Fashion Square, Old Town.
Oh, nice, nice. Yeah, I lived at 44th and Camelback, so it was like up the road.
Yeah, it's not too far.
Hmm.
Over by the Phoenician.
Mm, that sounds super familiar. Do you know where Phoenix Country Day is, the school?
Uh, I'm not, but if it's Camelback and 44, I think that's pretty close.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that was fun though. That was like 10, 15 minutes from everything.
yeah.
It's not bad at all. But so
Where are you in Colorado?
I'm in Denver, downtown Denver.
Beautiful,
So
man.
yeah, it's not bad. I was thinking about getting up to the mountains today because, or I'm definitely going tomorrow. But I was thinking about going up today at first because I like just got back from a conference and I spoke at the National Baseball High School Baseball Coaching Association convention, and I
Yeah,
just got back last night late. And I woke up this morning and like, you know how when you're traveling and you're kind of not sleeping and you're doing a lot and then you get back and your brain's just in a fog.
yeah,
That's kind of how I
yeah.
felt this morning. So I'm like, ugh, man, I need to like go. I need to go get out in nature for a little bit.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
tomorrow I'm gonna do that.
Crazy how we're sensitive to that.
Hmm. When you talk to your guys, do you talk a lot about? Let me switch over my Wi-Fi real quick. Might
Yeah.
I might lose you for a second. There we go. Quick switch. Um, but like, do you talk to your guys a lot about that? Like getting out without your phone, just kind of getting away, going and doing stuff like by yourself. No, not a lot of input from the outside world.
Yeah, no doubt, man. It's like the art of doing nothing or getting away from everything. I think that is such a valuable thing. I mean, just for all humans. I mean, not even for high performers, just to get away, to
Hmm.
experience nature. I mean, I think that's our root, man. That's our true home. We've built these colossal cities on top of humanity,
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
anytime we can get away is
I know that that's not just like that is a thing of a high performer though, is to get away and get into nature. So like
yeah,
when you say like not just for high performers, I think high performers are the ones that do that the most. Like
yeah.
more than anybody else. They're getting out there without that like constant input from the outside world. And they're taking vacation and they're just like getting away from everything. So yeah, that's kind of that's why I'm excited to get up in the mountains tomorrow and go snowboard and just kind of be I'll be with my girlfriend, so just be with us.
Beautiful. Do you leave your phone at home when you go snowboarding?
No, but I don't look at it because I mean, or I try not to anyway. If I do look at it, it's
Yeah.
to like basically take pictures. So it's
There you
just,
go.
but I need it because, well, I don't need it, but I like to have it because if we get split up, you know, it's going to be
Yeah.
hard to find each other
Good catch.
without it.
Yeah.
But so you're running right now. How's your running going?
It's going well, man. I'm up to 55 miles a week,
Mm-hmm.
shooting for 60 this week. So
60.
this is the tester, man. But still
Dude.
running alone, which you're right, man. Like running alone it's a different animal.
Mm-hmm.
It gets long and monotonous. So
What's your longest back to back right now?
let's see. Probably a 5 or a 6 and a 21. But this week is going to be I think a 6 and a 23 I'm shooting for.
So what are you training for right now? Like the sub 3 marathon?
I'm training for, well, I got a Phoenix marathon in February.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really shooting for a particular time there. And then Chicago marathon in, what is that, October, September?
Mm-hmm.
I'm shooting for Boston there.
Nice, dude.
Keep, yeah,
That'll be a good one
flat
to
race.
shoot for Boston. You should check out the Dutchman Marathon, the Lost Dutchman Marathon, and
Yeah,
it's not. It's just north of Phoenix, I believe. But I ran that one last year. It's awesome. It's like half on trail, half on paved
dope.
road, and it's through the Flatirons area,
Yeah.
and it's beautiful, beautiful.
Oh,
So
that's great
I
running
ran
out
I
there,
ran that one
man.
without a timer. So if you're not looking to like necessarily do a time, you're just looking to test
Yeah.
yourself. That's what I did there, and I actually ran my second fastest marathon without a clock. So I was pretty proud of myself because when I did run, so my fastest is like 3:37, and then when I did it without a watch, it was 3:43. So like I was like, dang, imagine if I had a watch to kind of push me. Or maybe it would have worked the opposite way. Maybe I would have looked down and just got discouraged. And I'm like, ugh, 9:30 right now? What's going on? Oh, I think I lost you.
Do
Oh, no, you're back.
you have me here?
Excuse me?
There you go. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you now.
Got me. I don't know if that's my internet.
Usually mine's pretty good, but the last like week it's been really weird. So I don't know if it's
Yeah.
yours or mine.
Yeah, usually mine's solid too.
hmm It's probably mine because the last week, dude, it's just been brutal.
All
But
good,
so
man.
what's like the number one thing you've been kind of stressing lately with your athletes or with the people that you're working with or with yourself?
I think with anything, I mean, just leaving my work, I think ended November 1st was my last day. So with me, it's stepping into a new role. I mean, this is a completely unknown territory for me. So being able to slow down and adjust to the new lifestyle. Some of the things I've been focusing on are speaking. So I realized this is going to be a completely like shifting from the weight room to mental side, like how we show up, how our words, how we express ourselves. So every day I've been literally sitting in my family room with my phone, just press and record 2 hours every day. So that's something I've
Dang.
been focusing on. Is just like being able to be comfortable in front of a camera. Haven't
hmm
really done it. So
Wait, so you are just speaking into a camera for 2 hours.
yeah,
What are you talking
yeah.
about when you
Well,
do that?
so I'm working on a presentation right now. I'm gonna go. there's a place up north, PFS. This guy
Hmm.
was an independent contractor with the Diamondbacks for it's been like 3 years now.
Hmm.
So his like the cool thing with him is he blends like uh, heavy lifting and West Side Barbell with meditation. So his dream is to like blend those two together, which is super super cool. And he's big movement guy, big into bringing athletes awareness. So been working on a presentation I'm going to give over there, and hasn't been officially scheduled yet, but should be here 3 weeks or so.
Oh, that's awesome. Is this the one you were
Yeah,
telling me
man.
about before too? Or did
Yeah,
you?
yeah,
Oh, okay, cool, cool. Yeah, that's gonna be fun. And I'd love to help you out if you need any help with like getting it going because I agree
yeah,
completely with you. Like both of my mentors, Brian Kane and Dr. Rob Gilbert, they consistently talk about how it's like the content doesn't matter if you don't get the energy right. So you have to get your
yeah,
energy right, and then the content will matter. Whereas a lot of speakers kind of have it backward. They think like, oh, my content's good, so people will listen. It's like, no, nobody gives a shit if you're boring to listen to. So or if you're just like delivering the information in a way that does not like get them excited about it, you know. So that's like a big point of
big on.
emphasis when I get my presentations together. Like when I just spoke at the National High School Baseball Coaching Association convention,
Yeah,
they I I put my speech together with Dr. Rob Gilbert, and I had him help me out with it because he's 73 years old. He's been doing this for 50 years. Like, so we went through and he showed me. Well, I've taken his class. I've also done other speeches that he's helped me out with, but
mm-hmm.
it comes back to like him being like, oh, right here, this is something you might think about doing. So like having his input was huge. And then when I went there, that was like it was awesome. Afterwards, guys came up to me and they're like, love your energy. And like that's how you create a connection, right? With through energy, not just content. And it doesn't matter how smart you are. If you don't bring the right energy, nobody's going to want to work with you or especially let you in front of their athletes. But
Absolutely right. I couldn't agree more.
yeah,
It's like
and
we're so used to living up here. It's like we are mostly our body. Like
mhm.
the majority of who we are is stored in our subconscious. So
Dude, going back to that thing you said about words, though, I got one for you. You got a pencil
yeah,
and
let's
paper.
hear
You
it.
got a pencil and paper
I
in front
do.
of you. Okay,
I
so
do.
I'm gonna read to you 12 words. All right,
Okay.
and then I'm going to don't write them down right away. Just try and remember them. All right, and then I'll give you like a minute to write them down afterwards. But this is and it's not a test in memory. It's just a test. It's a way to show you like trained versus untrained. But
Yeah.
anyway, so here we go. So the words are night, rest, eat, tired, awake, sound, bed, slumber, dream, comfort, snore, wake. So I'll read them again. Night, rest, eat, tired, awake, sound, bed, slumber, dream, comfort, snore, wake. And then I'm going to read them backward real quick. Wake, snore, comfort, dream, slumber, bed, sound, awake, tired, eat, rest, night. And I'll go one more time forward. Night, rest, eat, tired, awake, sound, bed, slumber, dream, comfort, snore, wake. All right, I'll give you a minute to write them down. 20 seconds. There's 12 of them. All right, let's hear what you got.
I got 8.
All right, let's hear them.
I
Which ones you got?
got night, rest, slumber, dream, eat, snore, awake.
One more time.
Night, rest,
Okay.
slumber, dream, eat, snore, awake.
Dang, that's not bad. What's crazy is when you do this in a crowd, like you didn't write down the word sleep, but when you do this with a crowd and you have somebody else come up and read it for you so that you know like they then for sure somebody else is reading the words. But those are 12 words that are all associated with the word sleep. So I never actually said the word sleep, but when you do this in a crowd, you normally get like 75 to 80% of the crowd to write down the word sleep. And that going
Really?
back to the power of your words, like we
Yeah.
think in pictures and we think in images. So when you say
Yeah.
these 12 words that are all associated with the word sleep, it makes you think about sleeping. And then I ask you to write down all the words. And like I said, like 75 to 80% of people write down the word sleep. And like that's without you even saying it. So like when you're getting somebody to focus on the process and not the outcome, and then focus on, having a plan and sticking to the plan instead of focusing on winning and focusing on championships, like you never want to say, or not never, but like you want to try and just associate the word championship and associate the word win with the process. So like you never even have to say those words. It's just implied, and they'll think about winning and championships regardless of if you ever say the word or not. And this guy Darrell Royal, who was the University of Texas football coach, he actually thought the word win added too much pressure to his football players. So he just used words that were associated with the word win, and he never said it. And so, like, I thought that was
Where
really
where was he? Where was he before Texas?
Darrell Royal. I mean, he was at Texas
Yeah.
back in like the '60s, so I have no idea.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I
So
just know
he
I
won
just
a
know
lot
that
of
he was there.
games.
Yeah, I'm looking it up right now. He was at Texas from 1957 to 1976, so he was there almost 20 years. And before that, he was at Washington, Mississippi State, and before that, he was the offensive backs coach at Mississippi State, assistant at Tulsa, and assistant at NC State. So yeah, he was there
I
for a
like
long time.
that.
He had a record of 184, 60, and 5 in college football. Won 3 national championships: 1963, 1969, 1970.
It's like that.
So pretty good. And he never said the word win, or at least he just tried to associate the word win with it.
What do you think? Like, do you think they're too high of expectations nowadays?
What, to win?
Yeah.
Or
Like,
just in general?
how do you think people framework their mindset when it comes to expectations?
That's a good question. I think the word expectation is associated with the wrong thing. So I think when you look up the definition of expectation, it means something than what you think it means. So, like, when I think of expectation, I think of like grit, energy, effort, commitment, like values. So,
Yeah.
you're expected to work hard. You're expected to have a good attitude. You're expected to have the discipline to get out of bed in the morning and go work out. But
Mm-hmm.
like you're not expected to win. You're not expected to get A's. You're not expected to have these outcome goals that because you can't control those. You should be expected to work the controllables. You should not be expected to work the uncontrollables, because if you're expected to do that, like you can't control that. You can't control winning. You can't control winning a championship. So then it's like when you expect that, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
Whereas like you can you can expect, like I said, those values out of your kids. I actually wrote a pretty I like the article, but I wrote an article on that about the difference between expectations and standards, and how you need to
Mm.
have standards in your
Mm.
program. But if you're going to have an expectation, it should be, excuse me, it should be related to the values of the program. So
I love that.
so
I
when you
love that
say like,
answer.
what do you like, are expectations too high? I don't think they're too high. I just think that kids aren't held accountable enough to the expectations, which are effort,
Mm,
like consistency, discipline, toughness, belief, aggressiveness, selflessness,
mm,
all of those. But a lot of coaches, I think in future conferences, like next year, the year after, the year after that, the next 3 years, I think accountability is going to be one of the biggest buzzwords in mainstream sports because of exactly what you just asked. Like, do you think expectations are too high? No, I don't. I just don't think that kids are held accountable enough on the first time. And the
mm.
ones that are those are the good teams, like OU, all those guys in the top four, LSU, Alabama. Wait, Alabama's not in the top four. Clemson, I mean, Ohio State, all of them. I mean, Alabama too. Like you look back at videos of Saban, and he's constantly talking about the word, like different words and different expectations around the values of the program. Never about like how I'm expecting you guys to win a championship. So,
Mm.
what do you think? Are expectations too high?
Based off of your answer, I think you hit it on the head. I think guys have the wrong image. So winning draws them outward, whereas everything you said are qualities that are inward. So when people hear things like winning, there's no like image that they can grasp onto to get them towards winning. Whereas you give them like grit, people are like, damn, I know, like I've seen someone have grit before, and that draws them inward. So it's like an inward approach always is more proactive than something externally, which is more reactive.
Mm,
So in that case, like that's something I teach is like cultivating qualities as a way of life to draw you inward, so you be more instead of do more,
mm,
which to me is the name of the game. It's how you show up, but how you show up is by focusing on the inward land.
yeah.
But so many people are out here.
That makes me think. I got a question for you. So people always talk about separating the who from the do, but like, I don't think, do you think it's that black and white where like, I'm Tyler Pasick and I'm like me being a mental skills high performance coach is not who I am, it's what I do. But at the same time, like, I think it is kind of who I am, like, I, what's your take on that? Because a lot of people want to say like, oh, you're not a baseball player, you're more than that. But at the same time, like, those guys are baseball players. So like it's always been confusing to me. So what's your
Mm,
take on kind of like that's not who
yeah.
you are, it's what you do.
So I take more of like an Eastern philosophy approach on that. It's like I am, and then we have a word attached after it. But the word attached after it, like I am a baseball player, is transient. It's temporary. And anything that's temporary isn't actually who you are. Like if you go to the deepest level of who we are as humans, is just pure awareness. Now you can identify as a baseball player, no problem. Although if you identifying as a baseball player, now you're putting your self-worth on your performance and you go 0 for 4, and then at the end of the night you have to figure out a way to mask over it with something. Well, now it could be problematic if you want to be top competitor you want to be. Most baseball players would categorize themselves as competitors, although their limits are restricted based off of things like we talked about expectation. Well, if I have an expectation to get 2 hits every night and I don't get 2 hits, well, now I have to, now I, it's leaving me feeling a certain way. And am I putting my self-worth in the sport, in my
So
performance?
what would you tell a guy if he was expecting to get 2 hits every night and he wasn't getting 2 hits? Well, how would you work him through that to get him to a point where independent of his him getting hits, he still can lay his head down on the pillow and feel like he's
Yeah.
a full human being, you know?
Yeah. It's a very good question. Well, first of all, he's got to be a willing participant. So if he's not actively seeking help, I don't think he can help. But if he comes and is like, man, I just I just can't seem to work over this stress that I'm putting on myself. Well, I'll just speak to the truth of having expectations of two hits. And I'll speak to him. I'll ask him, I'll be like, dude, so what happens when you don't get two hits? He'd be like, man, I don't feel good. There's something there. But he's like, all right, when you do get two hits, what happens? It's like, oh man, I could just exhale, I can breathe. So I just bring him back. It's like, why do you play the game of baseball? Right? Depending on his answer, most guys would be like, man, I just love the game. Well, like, if you truly love the game, wouldn't you just focus on getting lost in the game? That's something I teach, is like just getting lost in the present moment. Like, as competitors, we're mastering the art of being present. So you set them up for the truth. Like, there's no truth behind getting two hits, that you have to feel a certain way. And when they realize that, they're like, oh man, just be free. I said, so if you go in the game and you go 4 for 4, how do you feel? They're like, oh man, I'm on fire. If I go 0 for 4, what happens? It's like, man, I don't feel real good. It's like, what if you could go 0 for 4 and feel great? They're like, oh man, that's a different strategy. So you just open up their lens of awareness. You just open up that maybe this expectation lens is actually hampering their performance.
Mm-hmm. Or
And
not just
it's not.
necessarily if they're going 0 for 4, they feel great, but maybe it doesn't matter if they go 0 for 4 or 4 for 4, they feel the same.
Yeah, the same. I think you hit it on the head.
Mm-hmm. So, uh, man, I had a question, but it was something
Mm-hmm.
along the terms of like, what if this guy's hitting a buck 10 and he's about to
Yeah,
get cut from baseball, and he
yeah.
knows like he's on the way out, and like he's done if he doesn't pick it up, and he starts like, how do you deal with that sort of pressure? How do you teach a guy to deal with like that, where it's like that's his livelihood, you know? What if he has a family and kids, and like he's hitting a buck 10 and he's about to make a lot less money here in a second because he's about to not be playing baseball anymore, and baseball is the only thing he's known his entire life, you know? So how do you deal with a guy like that?
Mm-hmm. Has he asked for help in the past? Or
Maybe
is
this
he
is the
now
first
just
time because
coming?
he's like freaking out. He's like, dude, I
Yeah,
need I need to talk to somebody because like I'll try
yeah,
anything, you know? Which is normally that happens a lot more than it should. I always say like you don't fix a roof when it's raining, but a lot of people do. You know, like they usually try to
yeah,
fix the roof when it's already pouring, and it's like, dude, you should have came in like 2 weeks ago, but you didn't. Or, when's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. When's the second best time though? Today. So like at the end of the day,
yeah.
like they're coming in for a reason. And so what do you say to that guy though?
Man, that's a really tough question. I like it though. I would probably just like, things are good. And if I think you need to yes, what else is lined up, you know? Like, baseball's temporary, whether you
I
play
lost you
10
there
years
for
in
a
the big
second.
leagues, or your
I,
career
I,
ends in the minor leagues.
yeah, I
Yeah.
lost you there for a second. You're gonna have to start over.
Did you?
Yeah,
Dang.
I'm gonna move into the other room. Maybe I can get some better.
Yeah, all good.
Maybe I can get some better reception in here or something. But yeah, what were you saying? So
Are
what
you
do you
on the
say?
toilet right now?
No, no,
I'm
now
just
I'm sitting
kidding.
in my chair. So what were you saying?
So what do I tell this guy?
Yeah, what do you tell this guy?
It's a, it's it's a tough question, But I think you can answer it in one of two ways. You can speak to him truthfully, because if we know he's going to get fired, then you just open up like the rest of his life for him. Give him a glimpse into the future that he could live into. That's not a part of baseball, because at the end of the day, whether you're 10 years in the show or your career ends in the minor leagues, like you have life after baseball. So yeah, I mean, speak in a place that opens up his future, and speak to a place that, like, baseball is not, it's truly not life or death. Like, the reason why I played the game of baseball is to learn about myself, to grow as an individual. And I've taken those skills and have brought them into the strength and conditioning world, which has now expanded my life into something far greater. So
And then what's the second
the
way?
second way is you pump them with as much belief as you can.
Hmm.
What do you think?
I think both of those are the truth. If he's going to get fired anyways, like, then
Yeah.
I guess definitely, like, help him paint a picture of what the future could look like. I think that was brilliant. And then if he has a little bit more time, and you can pump him with belief, and then also, like, go back and look at his training process. What is the plan that he has to, like, get
Mm-hmm.
better? Because there's a lot of really good hitting coaches out there that can get you really good in like 2 weeks, can literally change the way your brain thinks in 2 weeks. I was just talking to this guy, Nate Rasmussen, who's a hitting coach for the Twins, and
Mm-hmm.
he was talking about, like, the different drills they do, and like, they did a study where they did like 2 weeks on this program, 2 weeks off the program, and then 2 weeks, or no, it was 2 weeks off, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. So they took a bunch of numbers from the first 2 weeks, they put them on this hitting program for 2 weeks, and all of their numbers went just through the roof. And then they took them off for 2 weeks, and those numbers instantly declined back to
Hmm.
where they were before. So he's like, obviously this program works. And so they've had him on those hitting programs and whatnot, in the minor leagues at least. So it's very, very interesting what, like, a high level
Hmm.
hitting coach can do for somebody. But at the end of the day, if they're like going up to the plate and they're freaking out every time, there might be some other ways to get through to them that have to be, those avenues
Yeah.
might have to be explored as well, like tapping or emotional freedom technique.
Yeah.
Those That could be
Just
something else. Help them release that emotional energy, that emotional tension that is going on inside of them.
I love it, man. Introduce something like a mindfulness program,
Hmm.
if they're open to it.
But also, I brought that question up because I hear that a lot from people. Separating the who from the do, and I agree. Like, I agree with you. I was just asking that question because
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting question to take on, and, like, kind of think about it, because, like, yeah, I'm a high performance coach, but at the end of the day, like, I know I'm gritty, I'm energetic, I'm committed. Like, no matter what I do, I know I'm gonna be fine, because of who I am.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. I think too, we get so pigeonholed into thinking we have to, like, we put our identity as like a high performance coach. It's like, well, what if you're no longer passionate about high performance? What if something else intrigues you? I think that's the cool part about being human, is we can go navigate different areas,
Hmm.
and we can go, like, I can go from being a strength and conditioning coach to leaving. I don't have to be a strength and conditioning coach my entire life. I can leave and go look at the world of high performance and mindset and see how
Hmm.
that, navigate that terrain. Because I, like, as humans, we are scared of the unknown. However, that's where we grow. We grow in the unknown. So if you're doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over, so there's nothing inherently wrong with it. However, if you feel like something's missing in your life, try navigate a new skill, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah, I always talk about there's three circles. So like in the first circle is your comfort zone, and then just outside
Mm-hmm.
that circle is your uncomfort zone, and then or the growth zone, and then just
Yeah.
outside that zone is the SYPZ. And you want to kind of live in the growth zone, and
Mm-hmm.
get outside your comfort zone, go back to your comfort zone, expand your go into the growth zone to expand your comfort zone a little bit more, and it just keeps growing. But you don't want to go into the SYPZ very much. I call that the shit your pants zone. That's like that's too far out of your comfort zone. That needs to happen not a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise you'll never want to go out of your comfort zone again.
Yeah.
But
I like
so
that.
with your athletes, like what's like a question you ask them, or what's an activity you take them through? For like the people listening, we're talking a lot about like who you are and knowing who you are, so then you'll be more comfortable or doing what you do, and you'll be willing to grow more within what you do. So how do you
Yeah.
teach somebody who they are?
Mm. It's a good question. How do you teach someone who they are? I mean, I think fundamentally we're all humans. So no one like yeah, we have a set of genetics, although the genetics they're they're only make up what 45% of who we are. So we have 55% of untapped potential. And a lot of the 55% has to do with the way we think, the way we perceive the world. And
Where'd you get those
one of
numbers? Did you just make
huh?
them up? Are those arbitrary
Yeah,
numbers?
they might be arbitrary, but I think I got them from biology of belief.
Biology of belief.
Uh,
Okay,
yeah, yeah,
that's interesting.
pretty close. But when you look at it like that, I mean, Dr. Joe Dispenza has had a huge influence on my mindset and like the way you think. Like thinking can literally create your reality. So if thinking can create your reality, who are you? Well, to me, it comes back to one of the most fundamental principles of being a human is that we're super adapters. So if we're super adapt, like we can train ourselves to be whatever we want to be. However, we got this monster of a subconscious that is created for survival and it's created for efficiency. And our subconscious, we've already trained it to be a certain way, no matter where we are at in life. Now, every decision you make after that recreates your subconscious. So you create yourself in every moment. Who you are is being created right now. And if we're super adapters, we talked about comfort zones. If you live in that growth zone, if you believe that, like Carol Dweck talks about fixed versus growth mindsets. If you live in the growth zone, well, now you're being more proactive in your pursuit, and you actually believe you can get better at something.
A real quick tangent. Do you believe
Yeah.
that we should live in the growth zone?
Do I believe that?
Yes.
Depends on what you're after in life.
Well, because I've thought about this. Like, if you're consistent, is it even possible to consistently live in the growth zone?
Mm,
You know, like, I
mm,
think, and correct me if I'm wrong, or I'm interested in your opinion, because like how I see it is you venture outside of your comfort zone into the growth zone to expand your comfort zone. Because it's kind of like when you're doing speeches and you're not comfortable doing speeches, you have to go out and do speeches and then come back to your comfort zone. Go out and do speeches and
yeah.
come back to your comfort zone. Then eventually, like, your comfort zone becomes speeches as well. Like, that comes inside your comfort zone. So you almost have to like go out and
Beautiful.
like try it and then come back,
Yeah.
try it, come back, try it, come back, and then eventually like you're like, oh, this is just part of my comfort zone now as well. But like,
Yeah.
I don't know, that's kind of like you're expanding your comfort zone by going into the growth zone.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. When you first trained for your 100-mile race, like what I heard is you described training, right? You give
Yeah,
yourself
exactly.
you you give yourself this load and then you recover. So when you first started running and you said, "Hey, I'm going to run 100 miles," what did your process look like?
It looked like me sitting down and coming up with every single training session that I was going to do for the next 9 months. Every single day
Yeah,
was mapped out. So I could
yeah,
consistently go into the growth zone and come back, recover, growth zone, recover, growth zone, recover. And then by the end of it,
yeah.
ran 100 miles.
That's beautiful. How was your recovery process?
Since then,
No, I'm saying like while you were training for it.
oh, I was like I was eating right. I tried to eliminate sugar from my diet, hot tub sessions, stretching, those Normatec boots, um, all that good stuff. Sleep. Sleep was the number one thing for
Mm,
sure. But that was what my
mm,
recovery looked like.
mm. So I think we can both be in agreement that there is that level of like going to the growth zone and then coming in and recovering, but
Yeah.
continuously tapping into the growth zone. Because
Hmm.
if we dip our toes in the water and we don't come back to it, well, you use it or you lose it. So
Yeah, true. So, but you were saying like you were going into like the subconscious, and you are who you are in every single moment. You're building your subconscious
yeah,
in one of multiple ways, but you're choosing that path moment to moment to moment. So,
yeah.
continue on with that. And if you don't, you said like if you don't consistently go to the growth zone, or did that tangent kind of get you off course?
No, that's good. This is getting my brain moving. But I think when it comes to our future based actions, I think if people have a clear picture on where they're headed, like now they can start to see if their actions get them in a place that are on course with where they're headed.
So
You
the
you have an act.
strategy.
You have what we were on the phone the one day and you told me about what is it, strategy and
Oh, A
blank
plus
gives you
ST plus
results.
Goya equals results.
There you go.
Ability plus strategy plus getting off your anatomy and doing something gets you the results you want.
I think that's it, man. I truly
Yeah.
do. But you have to and like if you're this of like human beings. Oh, looks like Siri jumped on here.
Oh, it's all good.
um, so if we come from the place like the human inherent problem that we all have is we're not enough. So a lot of people act in a certain way to become enough. But if you realize that who you are in this moment is exactly the place that like you're not, you are who you are based off of everything that's happened in your past. Now, accepting that and realizing like I'm cool with where I'm at, but I could take my game up to another level. I could still be committed to being great while coming from the place of man, but I'm cool where I'm at. I think there's some power in that too.
Definitely. So the strategy behind that, like if you were to take somebody through it, it sounds to me like one is get them to write down maybe three things that they want in their life. Because you brought up like getting to where you want to be, right? Well,
Yeah,
how do you
yeah,
know where you want to be if you don't know where you want to be? So
yeah.
like figuring out, okay, like what are the number three, what are like three of the things that I want out of my life? And you
Mm,
think about these someday goals, and then you look at those someday goals, and this is out of the one thing, straight out of the one thing, the book. And you look at those someday goals, and then you break them down into like, okay, here's my 5 year goal, here's my 1 year goal, here's my 1 month goal, here's my 1 week goal, and you have all of those goals related to that someday goal. And then,
mm-hmm.
you just start putting it into action every week. Like every week, you're checking off the box. Okay, hey, I did my thing this week that is related to my 1 year goal, And that's related to my 5-year goal. That's related to my someday goal. And then you just go back and you do that. And then when we were talking about like who you are, I think you brought up like a good point. Like who you are right now is not necessarily who you will be, but who you are right now is dictated off of your past. So like I can be currently in the moment, like the other strategy that I think you touched on was the strategy of like applying values or core principles to your life. And towards the end there, you
Mm-hmm.
talked about being committed and being disciplined. So those are two
Mm-hmm.
values that you can look at on a weekly basis and be like, okay, was I committed this week? Rate myself on a scale of 1 to 7. Was I disciplined this week? Rate myself on a scale of 1 to 7. What's one way that I was really committed this week? That I showed that I was committed? What did I physically do? And then you say, what's one thing I could have done better? And then how is it going to go better next week? And then you just go back to that goal and you hit on that goal again. And you're like, man, I showed that I was committed this week by doing this one thing. Or maybe it was with like discipline or any other core value that you pick. And that's the strategy I think that you touched on in order to actually like figure out who you are. And just because you haven't been trustworthy in the past, just because you haven't been disciplined and stuck to anything in your past doesn't mean that you can't tomorrow. It doesn't mean that you can't the next week. Like I think like AA, they talk about like, oh, you can't make it a year without having a drink. Well, can you make it just one day? Oh, you can't make it just one day. Can you make it just 1 hour? Oh, you can't make it just 1 hour. What about 1 minute? You can't make it 1 minute. What about one moment? And you can make it through a moment without having a drink. And just like you can in this moment choose to be more disciplined, even if because it's hard when you're looking at it in the long term, dude. Like,
Yeah.
it's hard to
Yeah.
like be disciplined for your whole life. It's like you look at that and you're like, holy shit, like there's so much life between now and then. And
Yeah.
how do I stay disciplined that whole time? But it's like it just comes back to the moment to moment process. But it also comes down to writing down that one value. Have you ever read Amy Cuddy's book Presence?
Mm-hmm.
She talks about that in there, like having a value. Those that have values written down, and those that compared to those who don't, they're more likely to be happier, and they're more likely to feel more fulfilled in life, and they're more likely to stick to their to to get what they want in life
Yeah.
just because
Yeah.
they have those written down. So um like I've really liked your um the way you put that, though. Like who you are right now is dictated off of your past actions and thoughts, but who you are in the future is dictated off of your actions and thoughts that are currently happening.
Yeah. Super powerful. And that
So
and I think that gives people hope too, that like who they are today, it's not fixed. It doesn't have to be fixed. Like it does require action, right? But like people hear the word action and they're like, I think you and I can agree that the process, I mean, I truly just love the process. I love getting up early. I love meditating. I love knowing that I'm creating myself to become my future self. And we talk about that future self. Why can't you be that future self right now? So one of the, I know you love questions. One of the powerful questions I ask people, or my people that seek my help, are that, hey, imagine yourself 3 years down the road. You are exactly who you want to be. I say, describe that person to me. And then I correct them on their language. I say, no. Speak in the present as if you are that person right now. How would you feel? And you get them like feeling these emotions of their future, and you make them realize is, hey, you can be your future self right now. You can feel those emotions right now. That's the power. That's the power of imagination. And now the process becomes something exciting. It becomes something like discipline, consistency, presence. Like those are something that you feel, and you feel them grow on a week to week basis. Like you feel it, and you give them a new habit, and you say, hey, how do you feel? 5-10 minutes of mindfulness a week, and then they get exposed to something that they've never exposed themselves to, and it's an unknown. They're like, man, I kind of feel pretty good. And then they realize when they don't do it, they don't feel as good. So it's like you don't even have to tell them to do it. They're going to continue to go seek their own way. So it's like we're like the master. They're the hero of their journey. We'll be the guide. We'll guide them.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean that's exactly what it is. There's if in any great book you've ever read, there's always the hero and then there's someone who helps the hero accomplish their journey. Like
Mm,
they don't even get there on their own. Everybody wants to look at like those guys, the heroes, as like the ones that got there, but they all had mentors and they all had coaches that helped them along the way.
mm,
And so I think that one that you brought up though, right there, like that's another great strategy to use for coaches to use with their athletes. Hey, like Jimmy V did this when he was at North Carolina State. He would have his guys cut down the basketball net at the beginning of every year. Like that was the first
mm,
practice. They would cut down the net as if they had won the national championship. And he's like, I want you to
mm,
feel like you're doing it right now. I want you to act as if we've won the championship. And now we're going to go up there and we're going to cut it down. And so he's getting them to imagine that future self and then let them know that like, hey, we can do this right now. We can have these feelings right now on a daily basis. And like all we have to do is play like champions every single day. And who is do you know Phelps's coach? Was it Bauman? Bowerman?
not sure.
Bowerman? Bowerman was the Oregon State guy. Or no, University of Oregon guy. But yeah, I can't remember Phelps's coach's name right now. But he would do the same thing with his athletes. He would say, pretend like when you woke up in the morning of your race, act as if you had already won the race the entire day. Act
Mm,
as if you had
yeah.
already that you are already are the champion.
Mm.
And like it changed everything for them. So
Super powerful. And I'll add on top of that, your Brian Kane was listening to one of his podcasts. He talked about training a fighter, and he'd wake him up or he'd bring him over to the arena at 12 during the day, during the afternoon, and just have him practice walking to the arena. So they
mhm.
already have the feelings of what it feels like before they actually walk in at night, which is another incredibly powerful preparation tool that like you just like that's not a normal thing to think about, but
Yeah, and that
it's
story you're talking about is
incredibly
legit.
crucial.
That story
Yeah.
you're talking about is legit because that was with George St. Pierre when he like
Okay.
when he won the title back. They went there like hours before he actually fought, and they
Yeah.
played the music. He like took off his shirt like he was walking in there. They did everything. They reenacted it to a T so that
Mm-hmm.
it wouldn't be the first time when he went out there. But I think there's something powerful too to like the imagination. Like I remember sitting there with Kane as he made the mental imagery audio for GSP.
Yeah.
And it was epic because literally there was music playing in the audio in the mental imagery tape, and there was like his thoughts that he was wanting to think walking towards the ring, and he was talking about how like hear the crowd, see the crowd, visualize the ring as you're walking towards it, like see yourself stepping into the ring, see your competitor across the
Mm,
octagon. And
mm,
it was everything. So like not only was he visualizing that on the day of, but he had done it hundreds of times before by listening to this mental imagery audio and doing that. Kind of like I always talk about like Juan Soto before after the Nationals won the World Series, he talked about that too, about how like, yeah, I'm 20, 21 years old, but I've already visualized myself in the World Series thousands of times. I've seen myself here. Because people were asking about his confidence and whatnot. How are you so confident, almost bordering cocky, you know, against the
Yeah.
best of the best in the World Series.
That's so powerful, man. That's and now you give people a perfect glimpse into how the highest performers think. Like they're literally thinking about their success. They're thinking about tasting their championship while focused on the process. And then people get so caught up in these negative thoughts, right? Automatic negative thoughts, ants. And it's like, how do I fix this? How do I get rid of these? Huh? Just focus on what you want. You could literally focus on anything. Anything you put your imagination on, you can focus on.
And actually, I just read this book by Rick Hansen about the power of positivity, or the power of positive thinking, or
Yeah.
no, it was not that one. That's not him. It's Hardwiring Happiness by Rick Hansen. And he
Mm,
talks about the two different ways that you can replace those automatic negative thoughts. And so when you have an automatic negative thought, first of all, you have to train your ability to catch those. If you don't even know, if you aren't even aware of them, it doesn't even
yeah.
matter. So, like, one technique or one strategy you can use to help yourself train yourself to catch those negative thoughts is meditation. Meditation helps you catch your thoughts, release them. And so, anyways, when you catch one of those automatic negative thoughts, it's already in your head. So now, in order to get a positive thought or replace it with a positive thought, that's on you. And there's two ways to get positive thoughts into our head and restructure our brain. One is to kind of Trojan horse it in there. So, because like think about like a cup or whatever, like
Mm-hmm.
your negative thoughts just easily go into that cup. Now, a positive thought gets stuck. It's too big to get in there. So either you have to Trojan horse it with a negative. So when a negative goes in, you instantly catch that negative thought and then replace it with a positive. And now you're not only getting rid of that negative thought, you're replacing it with a positive thought. And then the second way to do it is emotionally charge your positive thoughts. So when something positive does happen, getting emotional about it and reacting to it in a positive way. Now, what you don't want to do is you don't want to emotionally charge negative thoughts because that they're already getting in there. And then you're emotionally charging them, you're making them even more sticky. That's why we always remember a fight with our significant other, but then we don't remember them, cleaning up the house or taking out the trash or doing the dishes because we don't
Yeah.
make those emotional. So, like when you do have an automatic negative thought, just thinking, okay, caught it. I caught the I suck, or I caught the I'll never be good enough, or I caught the ew, who am I? But and then you replace it with like, okay, like I can do this, or I got this, or let's go, bring it on. This is like me, something along those lines. Can you hear my dog freaking out right now?
A
She's
little bit.
dreaming.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's
I wanna ask you a question off of what you just said.
hmm
So great tool to reshape into positive thoughts. What do you tell your athletes that say, hey Tyler, I play a lot better when I'm angry, when I'm charged up, when I do take those negative emotions and I amp myself up. What do you tell them?
hmm Well, I try and show them that they might think they play better in that state, right? But they're only remembering that one time normally. When like say I'm thinking of a specific athlete right now. I probably shouldn't say his name, but he told me about an instance like that, and he's like, "Yeah, dude, I went out there and I was like so pissed off at that other team, and I just shut them down. They had no shot of even like coming close to hitting me, and this was a pitcher." And then I'm like, "That's interesting." I'm like, "How many times?" Like how easy was it to get back into that moment? Like, have you ever recreated that moment before? And he goes, he's like, not that I can think of. Like, he's like, I've only done that one time. And I'm like, well, if you pitch so great, then why haven't you redone, or what am I looking for? Like, how come you've
Like
never,
brought them back into that optimal state.
yeah, how come you've never done that before? And then he's like, well, I don't know. I'm like, well, tell me about another time when you were like pitching at your best and you weren't in that state. And then he rattled off like three in a row where he
Yeah.
pitched great and he wasn't in that state. And I'm like, so like you can pitch great and not be in that state. And not only that, but like, how do you feel afterwards? Like, do you feel, even though you pitched great and you had great stats, like, do you like being that person, or do you like being the other guy, that one that's a little bit more consistent as well? And because it's hard to get there for him personally. So like when he says, I'm I play better angry, there's not too many guys out there that play better angry. And it's also very hard to get to that space.
Yeah.
So I would say like you can't get you like it's hard for them to get into that space consistently anyways. And even the guys that like you there's a bunch of tennis players for instance that like are known to have hot streaks in the past of
Hmm.
where they just have these blow ups, right? But they're not, it's like a controlled aggression. It's not
Hmm.
necessarily that they're gritting their teeth and they're trying to throw it harder. It's that, or like hit the ball harder. They're actually in this like ramped up but calm state of mind. So like when guys say I just pitch better angry, I just think that they don't have the tools yet to recreate that flow state. So like their anger, I talk about this a lot, like anger or whatever the emotion might be, it could toss you into your ideal performance state. So like the one guy I think about is Jason Day. There was a round that he shot earlier this year. It was the best round of the year for him, and he had a chiropractor working on his back every third inning or every third hole because like his back was so stiff, but he had the best round of his life. So how does that work? It's like, well, it tossed him into his ideal performance state where he was able to perform his best. That extra stress that he had helped him. It's kind of like the same reason why guys, when they feel super fresh and they're like, oh my gosh, I feel amazing today, they go out there and they get rocked because they were too relaxed almost. Or they were too like, yeah, basically they weren't stressed enough. They didn't have that stress
Yeah.
much of it.
No, it's
So
funny you bring that up. I can relate to that. I played my junior year of high school with a back brace, and I batted over 400 for the first 3/4 of the season. And in my mind, I always thought that I would have hit better if I didn't have the back brace, if I didn't have any back problems. But I think what made me perform so well was having no expectation to just freely play, and it
yeah, like
actually helped me out.
one time in high school, actually, now that you bring that up, we were playing our conference rivals, and I had gone to the beach like a day or two before or something like that, and I had a terrible sunburn to the point where I put my jersey on and it like hurt to move, and I had to pitch that
Yeah.
day. I went out and I pitched phenomenal. Like I think we lost like 2-1 or something like that, but or 1-0, but I mean, I I pitched way better than I thought I was going to be. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be terrible today. I can barely move. But yeah, it's like it tosses you into your ideal performance state. And so it's just becoming aware of like, okay, what got me there? Why did I pitch so great today? And maybe it wasn't even that they were angry. I bet you they weren't even angry when they were actually playing. They're like, "Oh, I play better when I'm angry and I get tough." And it's like no, you were probably more focused on just one single thing. And
Mm.
that's what I've been talking about a lot, like a swing thought or a pitching cue, just having one word or one phrase that you tell yourself over and over again. And when they were quote unquote angry, I'm sure they were just super ramped up, telling themselves something like, bring it, bring it, bring it, and they just kept telling themselves the same thing over and over and over and over again. And that's why they were so good. They weren't thinking, I'm angry, I'm going to throw it by this guy. They were thinking, like, bring it on, dude. Like, let's go. They were probably just more competitive. What do you think?
I I love your answer. I love you brought this idea of, all right, I'm angry right now, but I don't always get angry. So I can't rely on my anger to perform well. So, all right, there's an answer to realizing that being angry isn't the answer. However, we got both spectrums. It's like, all right, I'm not always going to be angry. I'm not always going to feel my best. Do I know myself well enough to perform and to just lock in on the moment? You brought up the fact that like an angry guy, he locks in on a higher intention, and that intention gets him locked into the present and the activity itself. So
Mm,
maybe when he's not angry, his mind is jumbled all over the place, and he just, for him, he'd benefit from that trigger when he's not angry to
hmm.
lose him into the present.
Hmm. Yeah, and you know what I'm thinking about right now? When guys are playing golf and they try to smack the hell out of the ball, and then
Mm-hmm.
they slice it the other way, or they hook it, or they top it, and it goes 20 yards. You know, they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna crush this one," and then they get up there and you can't. And it's like in golf, like 70 becomes your new 100. You know, like a 70% swing is more consistent than a 100% swing. So you might as well just stick
Mm-hmm.
with the 70%. And it's like if you can throw 100 miles an hour, but it's all over the place, would you rather throw 100 miles an hour all over the place, or would you rather throw like 96, 97 with control? You know, like what's helping you out? And then some people I think would argue like, well, I would just learn to throw 100 with control. And it's like, okay, I think that's a great answer, but how do you get there? Oh, well, you normally would probably learn to throw 96, 97 with control and then slowly ramp yourself up back to 100. So, um, yeah,
That's
that's
a
a
good
that's a
point.
great question though. I wonder, I'm sure everybody's answer is different for that one. Like, oh well, because there's a couple of athletes that I have that like they think they pitch better when they're super angry and when they grit their teeth
Yeah.
and they just try to throw it as hard as they can because coaches have taught them in the past. Like I was just talking to an athlete the other day about this, about how he feels like he needs to go out there and he needs to show that he's angry and show that he like is a competitive guy, and that is causing him to walk a lot of dudes and throw meatballs and just get rocked. And then as soon as he gets a guy on, he becomes more of himself and he's like, okay, like time to get to work, you know? And then he starts dialing it in. But like when he comes out of the bullpen, he thinks he needs to be super ramped up because a coach in the past told him, it seems like you don't want to be out there, like show me that you want to be out there. So his way of showing the coach physically is by like having that anger expression on his face and having that like emotion when it's like,
Mm.
dude, when you're pitching at your best, that's not actually how you act. So it's again building that awareness.
Mm. That's a powerful story.
And
So
like,
you showed him like that false like bravado is
mhm.
not who he is.
And video
And
doesn't lie. Like
yeah,
athletes, just show them video of when they're
yeah.
pitching at their best and you're like, I don't see you doing anything like mean or angry, and you're absolutely dicing. You're spotting up. Like, why do you feel like you're in that state or like need to be in that state when that's just not necessarily true?
Mm.
So I don't know. What is your answer to that question? How do you deal with a guy that says, "Well, I just feel like I need to be angry in order to play at my best"?
I think you get him to realize that if he can't self-create him to be angry, like if he can't get in that state all the time, then he's got to learn how to pitch effectively, whether he's at the optimal arousal level or not. And I think you hit it on the head. You give him a simple cue to get him locked in. I was talking to one of our better hitters in Double A this last year, and one of our players asked him, a younger guy, over at the complex. He asked him, what are you thinking about when you step into the box? And he's like, well, when I'm at my best, come to think of it, I don't think about anything. He doesn't think about anything. And I would argue that the best in the world aren't thinking about too much
I think that's
when
bullshit.
they're in the box, when they're on the mount.
I think that's
The
bullshit.
best the best in the world have one thought or nothing.
I honestly don't think it's nothing. I think that's bullshit. I think if a guy is saying that he is clear headed and he's not thinking about anything, I think he's not aware of what he's thinking about. Because the research says that he's supremely focused on one thing. So maybe he's not
Mm,
thinking a word in his head, but he probably has an image in his head of what he wants to do.
mm.
Like he's probably thinking about that next pitch. He's visualizing that next pitch out of the guy's hand that he is going to absolutely crush into the left center gap. Or like, I mean, the best in the world, the best hitters of all time, when you interview them, they all talk about how, like, all I imagine, Mike Schmidt, one of the best hitters of all time, talks about how all he thinks about is taking the cap of the pitcher's cap right off his head.
Boom.
And this guy didn't hit line drives up the middle. He hit more into the stands, you know. Um, Barry
So
Bonds
it's
talks about
simplified.
Barry Bonds talks about how he just swung down at the ball. He just wanted to swing down at the ball. Did he ever put the ball on the ground? I mean, maybe, but in my mind, all I think about when I hear Barry Bonds is him hitting balls into the cove, like, you know. So when a guy says that he has a clear head, I was just talking to a minor league hitting guy, and he
Mm-hmm.
was he was saying that same thing, and I was like, dude, I think that's bullshit. Like, a guy is not clear headed. He is not clear headed. And when I think back to my best performances, I'm not like, when I'm in that flow state, I'm seeing myself throw that change up perfectly to the outside corner. Like, I'm seeing myself, I'm seeing exactly the path of the fastball inside, like aiming it right on that guy's hip and it coming right back to the inside black part. Like, so yeah, guys that say their minds are clear, they're actually just supremely focused on one thing.
One thing. Yep.
So,
That's the definition of flow right there, though, right? I think the loss in translation is like you talk about flow. It's talk about that prefrontal cortex going offline. So your analytical thinking mind, your like voice that says, "Hey, your elbow is too high or it's too low," that goes offline, and you're actually focused on something that you're drawing your awareness to something that's in the present moment, or you're giving yourself a visual of what you want to happen.
hmm
Yeah.
that's definitely interesting, though, that guys say that. And I think it's even more interesting when you can get them to understand or get them to explain with words, because like I was saying earlier, like going back to the beginning of our conversation, like, your words describe the pictures in your head. So when
Mm-hmm.
they're like, oh, I'm clear headed, and you're like, okay, describe to me in words what you are thinking about when your mind is clear. And they're going to be like, oh, what do you mean? Like, I'm not thinking about anything. And you're like, no, like, there's an image in your head that you're thinking of. What is that image? Describe that image to me. And when they can describe that image to you, that's when they can, like, read those words on a piece of paper, and then, like, thoughts become things, things become thoughts. So it's like they can read that thing on the paper, and then it becomes an image in their head again, and they're instantly back absorbed in that moment. So, like, that's the importance also of, like, journaling after you're done playing. Like, man, dude, I went 4 for 4 today. What was I thinking about? And then, like trying to get those thoughts out of your head in words onto the paper, so that when you read them, you can recreate that feeling or that image.
And if you're a baseball player, go buy yourself a journal, because you absolutely hit it on the head.
I think if you're
Is
anybody,
that,
go buy yourself a journal.
yeah, no doubt. But like, so this guy said he had a clear mind. It's like you brought up a really great point. No, he just doesn't know what he's thinking about. It's like falling asleep at night and you're dreaming. And some people say, oh, I don't dream. Well, a lot of people just don't remember that they are dreaming. Like there's such thing as lucid
Hmm.
dreaming where you can actually create your dream, and it requires an immense amount of practice and focus. But like the yogis have mastered lucid dreaming because they've mastered their ability to
That's a great
focus.
analogy. I like that one. So
Yeah.
you're not like, it's not that you don't dream, it's just that you aren't aware of the fact that you're dreaming. So, like those guys that say they have a clear head when they're hitting, it's just that they're not aware of what they're actually thinking about when they're hitting. Same way. So I kind of like that.
That's powerful. And these are some of the best players in the game, which is
Yeah.
crazy to think about too. Yeah.
That's the importance. That's why these guys got to get interviewed. Like Ken Ravizza was a genius, like interviewing Major League Baseball players and whatnot
Yeah.
to like get to understand like what they're thinking. I don't think they get interviewed enough. Kind of, they don't get interviewed enough in a formal setting. It's always
Mm.
on like MLB Network or some show that like isn't asking them necessarily questions like this one, like these ones. But awesome, man. Well, what's your number one takeaway from our little chat today?
Intention and power of thought. So when you go into anything in life, whatever results you're striving for, being able to focus on an intention, having your intention gives you the result. It's part of your answer. It's part of the process. And the more awareness you can draw into what you're doing, the more answers you find. Now you don't have to worry about the outcome, the performance. You have the answer. You know what it feels like internally. You know the thought that got you to where you want to be. And now it's a you don't have to rely on a coach giving you feedback and to telling you, hey, that was a great swing. You can feel internally what it feels like. And now you're an active participant of your own growth process, because the best place to learn is through your own experience.
Beautiful.
What about you?
Um, I would say that it was. I really liked what you had to say about like how your past doesn't determine your future, but it has determined your present. And now it's up to you to control your present in order to determine your future. So I like that. I've never really heard it put that way. So that was definitely my number one takeaway.
Awesome.
And then, yeah, the strategies to help you actually do that, the few things that we talked about. Awesome, man. Well, I'll talk to you soon. And
Yeah,
yeah, keep crushing it on those runs. Keep getting after it down there in Phoenix. We'll have to get a run in sometime soon, or
no doubt.
maybe a lift instead, since I haven't really ran in like 2 months.
You coming out here soon?
Probably not soon, but I'll be there eventually.
Okay,
No
awesome.
doubt.
It's Tyler, man. Thanks for having me on, man.
No problem. I'll talk to you
I had a
soon,
lot
Mike.
of fun. Take care, brother.
See ya.